The final antagonist of your story is probably one of the most important characters you need to design. How do they look? Are they intimidating? And what purpose do they serve, and how do they challenge your hero, aside from just being the final big bad of your story? Today I will be looking at Eric Zilla's Zoaloid from his Exodus series. Now, Zoaloid as a character is comprised of three in a way. There is the Zoa Parasite, there is Zoaloid itself, and then an upgraded form, which is Zoaloid Scorpion form. So first I'll be going over the Zoa Parasite, moving up to Zoaloid itself, and then finally the Zoaloid Scorpion form. Throughout the review, I will talk about what pertains to a specific part of Zoaloid, and any major thoughts that have to do with the character as a whole will be saved after the Scorpion form. So let's get into the Zoa Parasite. Now, the Zoa Parasite is 4 meters tall, 200 kilograms, or around 441 pounds. Its weapons are its clawed tail, its bite, obviously scratching, and the ability to absorb the souls of children. That's pretty morbid, okay. Going on to color, it is a kind of green with black highlights, and it's got a yellow underbelly. Green and yellow are analogous, so they work really well together. Blue and green are analogous, and with Exodus being blue and yellow, I think the fact that they are both using colors that the other doesn't use that are analogous works to kind of differentiate them and make them kind of a two sides of the same coin, being one is a demon and the other is an angel. I like the fact that it is actually green and yellow, mainly because demonic characters are usually shades of browns, reds, or these fleshy tan colors. And having a character that is a demon monster not being any of those colors or black or anything like that is a very good touch in my opinion. The legs or the claws kind of remind me of the Aggregate Destroyer, similar with the tail as well. The head is very beak-like, and I like the three-way split mouth. The fin on the top of the head is kind of nice. It's a good touch. It gets lost with the other designs. It just becomes kind of spines running down the head. The arms are also pretty nice as well. They're good for grasping and clawing at things, and those as well get lost in the later designs. So for a character who in concept is on the ground attacking humans and being a direct threat to people, I'd say that it has a threatening enough design, a good color scheme, and is able to do its job very well in my opinion. So the Zoa Parasite in terms of design doesn't really need to change much. Now moving on to Zoaloid itself. Now here with the normal Zoaloid itself, it is 290 meters and is 120,000 tons. Its abilities include flight, the ability to absorb the souls and faith from children, so now we're getting faith into this. Able to shoot poisonous, venomous gases with the souls of the children from its mouth. Able to release little creatures called Zoa Parasites. So the Zoa Parasites itself exist within the normal Zoaloid and can shapeshift its tongue into a secondary mouth. And it's able to use its tail to strike at its victims and grab them, so it's a prehensile tail. This is the first of the Zoaloids to have a four weakness, those being the Light of God as well as the Power of God. In terms of the design itself, it becomes a lot less mobile compared to the Zoa Parasite. Zoaloid looks a lot like a giant kind of caterpillar as of sorts, because it's got these larger kind of lower spikes running up the body. It has these bulbous pieces right here in the front which are yellow. I'm not sure if they're kind of like sacs of some kind. Reminds me similar to Batra as well as Biolante with those two design aspects. In terms of the tail is, it guards getting these kind of gray slate-ish kind of colors for its spines. And it's a little different from the Zoaloid Parasite tail. However, it works fine. The wings, proportionally, I would say look kind of small in the picture. However, there is no stat for the wingspan, so it might just be the picture itself. And we're seeing a lot more different shades of green. With the first Zoaloid Parasite, it was a very kind of samey green across the board. With this, we're seeing a dark sage-ish color, and then the normal green with a lot of light greens in between. The face now, compared to the Zoa Parasite, it's got obviously the red tongue, so there's now red being added. The face is a lot less bird-like, as the Zoa Parasite had kind of a beak-like structure in the front, and is a lot more dragon or crocodilian-like. And now it's a kind of Gorgo-esque, membranous kind of ears or skin flaps, as it were. And obviously, like I said, with the Zoa Parasite, where it had the fin on the top of its head, that is gone now with normal Zoaloid, and it's just kind of spikes running down to the back. So we're trading off a kind of mobile, scary, kind of small monster to a very big and what appears to be less mobile but very threatening monster. So now we're going on to the final form, which is the Zoaloid scorpion form. Finally here we're seeing the green becoming less prominent and the yellow starting to take center stage, with the ear flaps. Those right here are now yellow instead of that light green. There's a lot more yellow highlighting certain pieces like the claws, the back claws, which are also similar to the Aggregate Destroyer. The body area seems to be less kind of stable on the ground, and now it's supported by the claws. And the kind of lower midsection there actually almost looks like an insect of sorts as well. It's got kind of little arms, and it's got little beak, and then it's got two sets of eyes, bigger eyes than smaller eyes. The chest now appears to have a form of armor or muscle texture to it, which is now also a mix of that yellow and green, as opposed to Zoaloid's more sack-like structures. The tail loses the slate coloring as well as the rest of the claws do, and now it's got the similar green color that the Zoa Parasite did. And now that it no longer has those kind of slate-like little gripper claws, it's now got these giant scorpion claws. And it's a very kind of, I wouldn't say it's over-designed in a way, but it does show a lot with this picture, and it does a lot here. For its height, it is 300 meters. It is now 150,000 tons. For abilities, obviously it's very durable, tail swipes, super strength, giant claws. It can slash with its extra claw appendages. It's able to grab its opponents with its claw tail like normal Zoaloid. It's able to unleash flying Zoa parasites from its mouth, and obviously it has the extra mouth here that the other Zoaloid was able to do. However, where we had the red tongue for normal Zoaloid, scorpion form has a yellow mouth, and now we're seeing how that looks. It looks very, not alien-ish, but its function is very similar to that of a xenomorph. Now, the issue, if you want to call it that I have with the designs is that after the Zoa Parasite, Zoaloid and the Scorpion form appear to be far less mobile than the Parasite. And looking at Zoaloid itself, it appears to just be very worm-like. It doesn't look like it would be moving too much, and therefore it's just a giant kind of walking target of evil, as it were. And when we get to the Scorpion form, now that it's no longer having this worm-like structure and now it's supported by these claws, and it's using all of these appendages to kind of move along the ground, that's not going to be very fast either. So with speed, you need to balance the speed and power, or add something to the design that makes it appear as though it would move fast, or give it an ability like making sure that we know that the Scorpion form can fly so that it's able to move fast in the air or something like that. However, based upon both designs, it feels as though they're lacking in the mobility aspect, which makes them feel less like terrifying engines of destruction and more like the stationary boss in, say, a Castlevania game, for example. Now, onto actually the name itself, Zoaloid. I do kind of have a problem with the name itself. With demon names, there aren't a lot that start with Z. Official ones are 3 specifically. There is Zagan, Zeeper, and Ziminar. Yes, Ziminar. And with Zoa does not really have a kind of Hebrew-esque influence for it, because with Exodus, we always had Exodus from the Bible, but Zoaloid doesn't seem like it's drawing from any influence necessarily. And then Lloyd, or IOD, that whole kind of ending suffix of the name feels less like a creature that is of like mythical or spiritual origins, and more like a biological or scientific-esque monster, or even a Bakugan, since all the Bakugan ended with Noid or Oid, so like Dragonoid, Mantanoid, stuff like that. So I would definitely say looking into how names are kind of pronounced or how they're structured, and understanding how those work. And another thing is that with world building, there's really no classification of this creature. Like, obviously it's a kaiju, but it's a demon kaiju, so you want to say, like, is it a demon of fate, incubi, succubi, wander groups, armies, familiars, druids, Cabians, mischievous creatures, a demon that attacks saints, etc, etc, etc. Because if you want to add that spiritual aspect to it, you want to have to put in the work to understand where it sits in the hierarchy, or you have to make up your own hierarchy. So I recommend a lot of world building. What you could do is do a lot of research into grimoires or certain texts that kind of classified those kinds of things, and by doing that, I do believe that that'll help you come up with probably a more appropriate name for the themes that you are trying to work with your character, as well as trying to see if you can world build where this Zoaloid creature sits, being that it's lower than Lucifer, but we don't really know much else around it. So yeah, in terms of design, the design's fine. I'd recommend finding ways in which you can make it appear more mobile, making it more threatening. And then as for the name, I'd say definitely change the name. Powers are okay, however, one thing I will say is that poisonous and venomous, they aren't really interchangeable. You can either say it's venomous or it's poisonous. I'd say just saying they're toxic works, and once again, because you're using a lot of spiritual themes, I would say world build also what's the difference between sort of standard energy based attacks like plasma beams or anything like that, as well as spiritual attacks, because you mentioned with Zoaloid it's affected by the light of God and the power of God, so you want to find some way that sort of works around understanding, well, what is that, and then what is the difference between other weapons used by other monsters, because if you don't understand how your magic system or your power system works, then other people aren't gonna, and it's just gonna seem very contrived that, oh, why didn't he just use this beam? It's able to perform this feat. Oh, he's immune to it. Like, there's a lot of contrivances that can occur when certain magic systems and abilities aren't explained enough, and what affects what specifically. So I'd just say go into more detail with the world building, but in terms of the design itself, they're fine overall. However, I would recommend making the scorpion form and the normal Zoaloid a little bit more mobile. But yeah, I have to say that Eric has put in a lot of work in his designs. He always does. He has a lot of experience making just tons and tons of kaiju already, so it's only the little things that I really need to nitpick here that I take issue with. But other than that, it's amazing. I really love this design. Closing out here, I just want to say that I thank Eric for letting me review his character. It's really great. I liked it. Very few things that were wrong with it that needed to be fixed in terms of design. In terms of his story, just needs to fix up the name a little bit. I can send him some sources that he can need to read up on it, working out how like his universe's powers work, so there's a better understanding of that for a reader. And just very minor nitpicks. This really wasn't a hard review necessarily to do, aside from the schedule itself, because Eric is a very good designer in terms of how his kaiju look, and it's very just minor things I need to work on here and there. But that can be said about a lot of the people that I do reviews for, because they're all very talented and passionate about what they do. So I hope everyone really liked this video. I certainly enjoyed it, and I hope Eric enjoys it as well. Take care, everybody. See ya.